in 1917. As a medical student, may know his theory and the rules for diagnostic, and they can be practical useless at bedside or in operating room. So the law student may know his theory and be helpless before a real client. And on IHL clinic, we will say we will be helpless on the humanitarian action, on the people in needs. So I think that's the main one of the reasons for creating a clinic, for having a clinic, to have this real work. Okay, so with that in mind, I will go over the question number 4, which is related to the academic background. Um, in which year they establish. It is compulsory or non, the working languages, the challenges and opportunity on these issues. I divide my presentation basically in two uh, areas or two moments. Um, the presentation will have two main sections. I try to create a quantitative evaluation, uh, which include the years, the number of years that each clinic has, the number of credits, uh, and the language. Then the second section, I present an qualitative analysis on the main challenges and opportunities. First, uh, we have a chart with the years that each clinic has, and we have one of the ideas that I found from these answers is that the clinics that have more than 20 years are those who cover more areas, as we said, like general clinics, including international public law and human rights, while the specialized IHL clinics, we have less than 12 years. Uh, this allowed us to see that setting up an IHL clinic is still a process, is still on process. And that we have only between 12 and 1 year old. Um, there's also one that's going to be open in 2025. And the new ones, including the one that is going to be open, can take the experience from the oldest clinics, um, with this perspective, setting up maybe a clinic, learning from what is a general legal clinic with a general approach, and what is different to set up a IHL clinic. So we should take in mind those aspects. Concerning if a legal clinic is a compulsory course, a we have 18 answers that say no, it's not compulsory, it's an optional course. We have two answers that they say yes on a master level, on masters on humanitarian action, on human rights and IHL. And I find this really interesting. One of the findings is that at a master level, a clinic can have another approach. We can have legal clinics um, that where we have people with experience, probably few experience, but they are at the master level, so they can be in charge of more difficult cases. And only one answer says that it's compulsory our undergraduate program. That's my case. I said a few minutes ago, in Universidad San Francisco de Quito, we have um, a course that is for students are the last year. There is a 1 year course with legal clinic, and students can choose among diverse areas of clinic. We have business law clinic, we have public law clinic, we have constitutional law clinic, and IHL and human rights. That's the one that I'm in charge. We have some legal reforms, academic reforms at the Ecuadorian system, which requires to uh, adapt the credits, number of credits. So the next year, It's very challenging for us because we will have only one semester as a mandatory course, and the second semester it's gonna be optional course to have legal clinic. So we must be very attractive for the students because they can choose or not or legal clinic. So I found quite useful or good guidance what the discussion that we had before to make the on the second year like a volunteering of some kind of monitor of the process to get them involved. So that was when my question, the reason my question was that. um and yes, but in most of the cases 18 universities have this, um I won't say a problem, but this challenge to make the clinic enough attractive for students because it's not a compulsory course. How do we make attractive? You know, all over these years, we began our clinic in 2017 as a specialized clinic. One of the main reasons why now students are getting involved is because the former student says, was a good experience. And we were there like 4 years ago, and now the regulation is published, and now we have a change in law. So when students feel their impact, and that makes a big difference from helping an NGO where they just go one semester and leave as an internship. They can be related to the project. They can keep related to the project, and as a legal clinic, we also can evaluate the process. So that will make attractive the process of a legal clinic for those who are not compulsory courses. The third question that I tried to figure out how to make quantitative was the academic credits award. The first observation that I have is that we must keep in our minds that what means a credit could be different in one system and another one. Because for some universities we have like 16 credits, and for other one is just one credit, and for others they do not get credits, just like they get a certificate. Um, but what I find quite as an opportunity is to get credits. That also make attractive for students, to receive credits for the legal experience. And we have to be very honest on this. The legal clinic is a lot of work. Uh, I did my master program at GW in DC, and I was working at the legal clinic, at the human rights legal clinic, and students they receive the double of credits than a regular course. And I think it's fair. We need to have this approach to explain the authorities because a legal clinic work demands you not only more time, demands you more capacities, demands you more um, academic analysis, is to put in practice all that we have been talking about on real cases. So I think it's important to recognize that's one of the conclusions that I found about the credits award. Um, let me see. Okay, I'm almost on time. And the working languages, I also forget to talk. English, one of the main working languages, and I think it's important for us, to have like as a that's a one point in common. Then we have a couple of clinics that we're also working in Spanish, and we should keep together, working also in Spanish and supporting. And it's a good, very good number in Dutch. There are other languages that I speak, uh, but I think that we have to get together on English as a language that can make us uh, possible to work together. Okay, now to to the main challenges. Well, actually, as you just already talked, financial constraints are the main challenge for seven of the institutions. Another challenge is the working period, because a legal clinic process can take more than one semester that we have for the legal students. So that means a lot of work for the professors have to keep it on the track, and that's a challenge. Also, teaching in a conflict area. And now, as an Ecuadorian, that we have just a declaration on non-international and conflict in January, as you may know, it's really challenging how to keep your mind enough cold, enough uh, tied to give an advice. That's a challenge, trust me. And I have a survey from Israel too, who got this idea. And now in Euroview with Ukraine, how to be objective. And I think our good partner, the ICRC, who help us and guide us a lot, how to keep the mind uh, on set. The number of students, yes, is all another challenges. So some institutions do not have the enough number of students and cannot keep the number of students on for several years, for some years. And I think that the main challenge for all of us is to institutionalize the legal clinic, how it's become part of the university, part of the program. And another challenge is says limited motivate faculty on accepting supervised voluntary work of the legal clinic. And I think that we should try to keep those challenges together and maybe become an opportunity for us. And I think we should work on or with our colleagues to try to find areas where we can share some objectives. Sorry for the time, I'm almost there. And my final thoughts, as I said, we have to institutionalize to have a structure. We need a structure, a staff, an organization. Maybe we can include from the former students too as monitors or as like any kind of volunteering. The financial support, uh, and then we can find like projects. We should see projects with our partners, as you already talked. We the general clinics, the human rights clinics, the international public law clinics may guide the IHL clinics on the process. And for example, on that guidance, I think that for the 2025 survey, we should include quantitative questions, make it easier to analyze. Yeah, how many years choose for between this, and maybe why not to think, Julio, to publish it. We have a very important source to think to have a like a, the academic report from this survey to see the main reflections that we are discussing right now. Maybe it could help us to institutionalize, to show other authorities. It's different. Well, I participate in this conference, and there is the report which says, the legal clinics needs this guidance, need this. We need those credits. It could be also helpful for our activity with or or advocacy with authorities. Uh, the legal clinics with more years receive. There's another thing that I found really interesting. The legal clinics that have more years, like have 20 years, they receive more academic credits. Yeah, it's you find a match there. More years, more academic credits. So we must sustain, keep the process on track. Um, And another interesting insight that I found useful for my university from the survey was to think that the legal clinic or the clinic project could be instead of a master thesis. I don't remember which university was doing that, but it was really interesting process. Instead of doing a master thesis, they can do legal clinic report. So it's another way to keep the legal clinic activities on track. Thank you so much for your attention. Now, there's my name, and I open it to your questions and a picture from my home city, Quito. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot, Hugo. No, especially for the excellent overview you have provided. It was really full of inputs on and suggestion, and also helpful suggestion in this regard. I don't want to start, but if are there any questions from the audience? Yes, please. If you can, because we need to use the micro for people at home. Yes.
Hi, Jessica Dorsey from Utrecht University again. Thank you very much for these insights. Back to that very last point, very innovative way instead of a master's thesis. But can you talk to us about some of the practicalities about assessing that? Are you talking about individualized projects within the clinic in order to then be able to sort of comport with requirements on assessment, et cetera? Thanks.
Um, let me let me remember. Is no around here? Uh, the university who is doing who has this process? Or, let me check who was where I found this answer. Classical. Well, I don't remember exactly. Was it you were the one?
I mean,
Yeah, I prefer that the university that's working on it will answer. I can give my thoughts, but
Um, standing here. There's the camera. So maybe some feedback on this clinic project instead of a classical master thesis. So given, first of all, thanks for summarizing the survey, because I now realized that in Leiden we are the oldest IHL clinic with 12 years, but are still even not half as far as general clinics are, so that's good to know. Yeah, even though we are the oldest IHL clinic in at least, we constantly need to deal with these challenges which have been mentioned multiple times, including financial support, getting enough teaching staff, etc. And about a year ago, I had first one of my team, Johanna, who came up with the idea, wouldn't it make sense to maybe get additional resources from the faculty, the department, if we would offer this as part of the thesis process also, and that was actually, I think, her main argument, because as you just said, students don't get enough credits for this. Yeah, so in Leiden, they get either 5 or 10 ECTS, depending on what master they are doing. Those who get 5 ECTS are actually not getting a good deal, I want to say. So our master thesis is 10 ECTS, and on top of obviously every master thesis student has a supervisor. Yeah, so you could somehow solve two, and I should talk to Jessica actually because she asked a question. You could like, how is it called? Two birds with one stone. Yeah. By saying, why don't we somehow merge a number of thesis students into a clinic project? Also because the work they are doing is obviously much more comparable to writing a thesis because it's a long research project. And we have additional supervisory staff, and it's actually already part of the master thesis students. Every one of us has to supervise like 12 master theses or something. So if I would suddenly, instead of having to do the clinic on top of my normal teaching load, can say, okay, 5 of my thesis students are doing a clinic project, I'm actually being relieved a bit of some supervisory function. So this was the idea. We discussed this with our program directors of the master programs. They were in general open, but also admitted that this might take some time to implement. As always, is this recorded? Yeah, probably. Anyway, I didn't really wait too long. Together with Sabrina, we had already an envisaged cooperation with our Air and Space Law master, because we did this digital derived evidence project in criminal proceedings and created a so-called thesis lab, which means we are now having a cooperation that's between Delft, Leiden, and Rotterdam, of students from different disciplines actually working on how to use satellite imagery in order to track IHL and human rights violations. And this was initiated by a colleague Wim Plok from who is engaged in air and space law, and I'm talking too long. But anyway, yeah, Giulio, this is the idea. Has now just started. We have to find out how this works. It's not really a clinic project. It's just at the moment 12 students, I think, from these who work on a similar topic and try to produce a white paper as an advisory opinion to colleagues in practice. Yeah, so just as an idea, we have to still find out whether this is possible. Sorry for talking so long.
Just I found the answer was on the Clinique juridique Rosa Parks pour les droits humains, l'Université catholique de Louvain. they have this process. So maybe we can ask them more. Is it optional for students who can undertake a clinic project instead of a classical master thesis during the last 2 years of their studies in law? So they have the experience there, besides what Robert said. And also, I want to say that we are also discussing at Universidad de San Francisco, as we wouldn't be a mandatory course for the second semester, maybe to give the option to them, but it's going to take a long process. We have to go to the government to ask for a reform and so on. But trust me, students, when they engage with a project, with a case, they prepare and they work even more professional than they do on the thesis, and it's more demanding process and it's more qualified. So for example, last year I have a case at the Inter-American Court of Human Rights, and 6 of students, they work really deep on the preparation of the arguments, and essentially, and they have to manage it between the clinic and with thesis, and they do both of them, of course. But I say, yeah, they deserve to receive the title due to their work on the clinic. So I completely think that's a good idea, and to keep on track the clinic, to offer them as an option, as an alternative option instead of a thesis. So I took this idea, and I think it's useful for us to institutionalize the clinic. That's all.
Yeah, Andrea, please.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Andrea Varga from Glasgow. And I just wanted to add real quick that we also have, it's not part of the IHRL clinic, but one of my colleagues is running what he calls collaborative LLM dissertations, and it is basically the same idea. And effectively, it replaces the general, normal LLM dissertation. It is worth the same amount of credits, but the way that it is run, it is similar to a clinic in that, again, like, so he, my colleague, he drew on his personal network, and then there's basically an agreement drawn up each time on what the external partner expects, what the student is supposed to write. I have actually read as a second marker a dissertation that was produced this way. I thought it was something that has a lot of potential. It was on strategic litigation, for instance. So it was not in IHL, but it's still something that I think the format works very well for it, because it is like this sort of more long form single piece of research. And again, you have typically the supervisor is also someone who is then, you know, like has expertise. So it is also useful for managing it. Oh, and we have plans to expand this to international.
Thank you, Andrea, for sharing this further experience, which I think can fix, because I don't see any further points on that. Just a quick point on my own observation on that. I think it was very interesting, your point on, of course, competition also in the university. So there are multiple cases in which, of course, you can even have the opposite. So a lot of legal clinics operating in the same university, and then you have a problem of finding students there. We had discussed with Elena from Macedonia before on this point. Also, the chance to find students, also a further challenge to explore, which also bring us to the further presentation arranged by Laura Di Gianfrancesco, Roma Tre University, on the role of clinic students and teaching assistants. Yes, Laura, you have the floor.
Thank you so much. And I have to say that I am always very happy to discuss this topic with you, and to discuss the role of actors generally populating legal clinics, especially actors who are not clinic directors. So to highlight a little bit the position of all participants to legal clinics. And the reason why I am always so happy to discuss it is because especially the role of students and teaching assistants alike, is the fact that it comes from my experience. I first came to know legal clinics when I was a student participating to the IHL Legal Clinic in its very first year of activities, and then I continued to collaborate with the activities of actually a number of legal clinics here in this department as a teaching assistant during my PhD years and my postdoctoral years. So I think I saw two sides of the class, and it's always a great privilege to discuss the position of these actors. Also, it is a topic that I'm quite close to, quite attached to, because as you may have understood from the description of the current survey of IHL Legal Clinics worldwide, this is actually a second survey, and it reflects one that Professor Bartolini and our team at Roma Tre produced last year on mapping public international law legal clinics based especially in Europe. So what the exercise that I tried to do with for today's presentation was to try and compare the data that emerged from these two surveys and to verify whether there are things that can be confirmed based on the analysis of the new data or things that are quite different or specific for IHL legal clinics, taking into account the broader geographical reach also of this current survey. So starting from the design of the class, one unsurprising but always interesting data concerns the number of students involved in clinical classes. So generally speaking, the design of the class, the size of clinical classes is quite small. It ranges from 10 to 20 students, with some notable exception. Maybe the Bochum Legal Clinic has the ability to attract a few more students, but generally speaking, the average number of students participating in each clinical class is around 10, sometimes even less. And this may be due to different reasons, actually. One has already been discussed, is the difficulty experienced by some clinics to attract students. And this might be due to the fact that in some jurisdictions, in some countries, clinical legal education also in IHL is relatively new. And so there is a difficulty in explaining to students the added value and portraying the legal clinic as a valuable addition to the program. But at the same time, this might also be the case for clinics that have been running in places which or for some time, especially due to the risk of competition between multiple legal clinics activated within the same university institution. Also, there are reasons of management of legal clinics. Legal clinics are time-consuming activities, projects are difficult to run, and especially if the clinic is understaffed, the number of students that can be managed is necessarily a low number. But at the same time, as we are discussing, we are having these workshops, our purpose is to institutionalize more legal clinics and expand the reach of clinical legal education. It is inherent to clinical legal education the idea of allowing this to be part of every student's educational background. So to some extent, there is an inherent paradox between the necessary limited size of legal clinics or of clinical classes and the aspiration of clinical legal education to reach as many students as possible. So this is one topic for discussion that I would like to maybe give to you as food for thought. One second area of discussion concerns instead the background knowledge of students, both on public international law and of IHL more specifically. And I think it is interesting because here I found somehow a difference in the data that emerged from the previous survey on public international law clinics based in Europe and the survey concerning specifically legal clinics in IHL. Generally speaking, from the previous survey, what emerged was that prior knowledge of public international law was not necessarily or not often a condition for admission to the legal clinic, considering the fact that training was provided within the clinical course itself. And this is possibly also the result of the difficulty in attracting students. So you cannot be particularly picky, and sometimes you do not have enough students who have that preparation, especially if you are acting at an undergraduate class. Here instead, from the new survey, I saw that when it comes to IHL legal clinics, it appears that prior knowledge of public international law, at least, if not even of IHL specifically, is more commonly required for participation. This is the case, for instance, of the IHL clinics at Emory University, which established this as a requirement for admission, but also in Germany at Justus Liebig, at the legal clinics in Amsterdam, in Glasgow, and to some extent also at the Universidade Federal do Rio Grande do Sul in Brazil. So there are a number of legal clinics that require this prior knowledge of public international law or IHL as a condition for admission. So the fact, I think, that this is the case, I believe it is connected to the fact that IHL clinics are more niche courses. They are or more often activated in postgraduate courses in LLM. So it's more, or maybe as it happens in Ecuador at the final year of an undergraduate program. Maybe because of the specificities of IHL, maybe because of the technicalities of IHL as a branch of international law. What I found, however, interesting is, notwithstanding this more common background of public international law by students, still IHL legal clinics continue or do not renounce to provide students with specific training. So notwithstanding the background, notwithstanding the potential prior knowledge of public international law, still effective clinic management does appear to suggest the importance of integrating, incorporating a part of training, both on IHL, on specific projects, but also on other type of skills for students participating in the legal clinic. For instance, training is not only theoretical training on IHL or the project topics, but also can be related to activities aimed at fostering soft skills, presentation skills, advocacy skills of students, so as to give them a full educational experience. Maybe this, I'm sure this afternoon we will discuss this more when we will present the IHL RED outputs to the audience, but we have identified this as part of the best practices in clinical legal education on IHL, and this is part of the output and the results that we have produced thanks to our cooperation. Finally, I wanted to say like a few words, final words on the idea that I got, or on the image that I got from this survey of the clinical class in IHL Legal Clinics. And the image that I received from reading the survey and analyzing the survey is that the typical IHL Legal Clinic is a small niche class taught at an advanced level to a small audience of students who are to some extent already committed to IHL. And here again, I see this inherent paradox between how IHL clinics operate. Obviously, this is with a great degree of simplification, but how it works in practice, and the aspiration of IHL legal clinics generally to reach as many students as possible, but also to reach as many students as possible as part of their specific educational mission to disseminate IHL to the civilian population as much as possible. So there is an inherent tension, and I don't know if IHL professors consider this limited ability of IHL legal clinics to operate and to reach students as inevitable, or maybe there is a way to allow clinics to grow in size and clinical legal education in IHL to attract more students, to reach a broader audience of students. And this takes me very briefly to my final point, which is the role of teaching assistants, of supervisors, of staff. Of course, effective clinical management is time consuming, as we said, and it does require the participation and the collaboration of staff, of supervisors. Of course, one may expect supervisors and staff to be a regular part, regularly incorporated in the work of legal clinics. But here again, I was a bit surprised to analyze the survey, because I realized that actually it appears that teaching assistants or other type of supervisors are not a necessary feature of IHL legal clinics. Around the 25% of the clinics interviewed do not benefit from collaborating staff, which is incredible, and kudos to these clinic directors which do this on their own. And this affects not only younger clinics or the clinics that are still in the making, but also very old, much older clinic. The Emory IHL Legal Clinic said that they do not benefit from any collaborating staff, and they have 20 years of experience. So my argument here is in favor of having teaching assistant, of having staff, for three main reasons that affect positively the management of IHL Legal Clinics, which is the fact that, first of all, staff supervisors are an intermediary figure that fosters collaboration and communication between directors and students, so they can act as a bridge also to work on the emotional challenges that come with clinical education. Secondly, because they alleviate some part of directors' workload and therefore allow clinics to grow in size and in activities. And finally, because it is a best practice in itself in clinical legal education, because it allows to implement double review process of clinical outputs. And this is also part of the suggestions and best practices that we have collected through our IHL RED outputs and that we will present this afternoon. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Laura. I could not imagine how legal clinic can survive without staff, especially good staff like you and the other staff that support the legal clinics. But I can say also the challenge is to involve people, especially if they're unpaid, as usually this part of the point, or don't get an extra, even it's still part of their salary they got from the university to some extent. Do you have any question on this point of students or staff, even here we have even some staff of legal clinics, so they can say something, or student online could be, or yesterday we saw the experience of several students in this regard. One, yes, Joanna, please. One is coming.
Thank you very much, Laura, for the summary of the survey results. From your review of the survey, can you say anything about increased employability of our graduates? It's usually a feeling that we have that they have a little bit of a better position on a very competitive job market, but did any of the IHL clinic staff indicate any concrete data on this? Thank you.
This is this is a very good point, and I hope that we included this answer in the survey. Unfortunately, now there was no specific question on it, and there was no additional comment on it. But at least from experience, we know that students have benefited immensely in their subsequent career with respect to employability and staff as well. I mean, the very fact of creating a network of getting in touch with partners allows for countless opportunities that students and staff alike would not otherwise have, as well as, of course, skills, to both hard skills and soft skills, I would say.
Maybe one follow-up on your observation that 25% of the clinics don't have teaching assistants, which I also find amazing. But I think from my experience, there can be two explanations for that. So it might be when you start an IHL clinic, you just started on your own because there is no infrastructure. When I was invited to Bochum to set up the IHL clinic, at the beginning, I was more or less alone, but thanks to the fact that Ahmed was, is he still in the room? Yeah, was my guest researcher in Leiden. He came with me to Bochum, so I brought my own support. And then Timela was also working already. And so I was like, it started to develop while the clinic was set up. So that's the one thing. What you described with regard to Laurie Blank in the US, there might be also differences in the system. And in the end, the US very much has the advantage that clinical legal education is much more established. So Laurie is a clinical professor of international humanitarian law. So as far as I understand, I hope I don't misrepresent her, but a lot of clinical professors main task is to entertain the clinic, and then it's still from my side a big endeavor to conduct a clinic with 12 students, but they have a reduced other teaching load compared to a lot of European colleagues maybe, or South American or African colleagues who do this on the side or in addition. So I discussed this with my former head of department, and I said, can I not become a clinical legal professor? He looked at me and was not persuaded, because obviously that doesn't exist in Europe. So this is a thing which might explain that especially American colleagues do this on their own, which I find still amazing, but it might be also then that they are hiring many more clinical professors to deal with different projects and different branches of international law. Okay.
No, this is super important also to analyze the data, because it's, I mean, the survey analyzes so many different jurisdictions with different systems, and as we said already, there is wide variety and diversity in the experiences. But yes, especially with the purpose of disseminating clinical legal education in terms of even our project on IHL RED, the idea is to showcase best practices, and then I would say hire staff, take staff with you, and it's a benefit also for the staff themselves. So it's a win-win. Thank you.
Okay, so thanks a lot, Laura, for this further comment. And now we are moving to Julio, who is going to present about cooperation and networking among IHL legal clinics.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for having me here. My name is Julio Veiga Bezerra. I am from the Universidade Federal do Rio Grande do Sul in Porto Alegre, Brazil. And I'm currently working as the legal advisor with research and teaching to the clinic. I am sharing my slides. I don't know if it's a bit slow, but I will try to move forward. So I will be speaking on cooperation and networking among IHL legal clinics. And before, I just wanted to say that this is also a good opportunity to follow up what we presented in LIDE and in the conference last year. Also, for colleagues, also giving an opportunity for IHL clinics from other regions and to bring a regionalization to this movement. So this is something that I will try to reflect in the presentation as well. So here I would like to recall the question proposed that the participants and managers of the IHL clinic responded. So relationship with other clinics, specify whether your clinic participates to formal, informal networks in or domestic international cooperation, and whether you have engaged in visiting internship programs for other legal clinics, directors, and staff. So it's a really broad questions, and we, in order to gather the data and present it in the best way possible, I have established more or less 6 categories to analyze this in a quantitative way as well, to try to portray this data. And I have to say here that some of these answers, they were not, some were longer than others, and the information was not always available. So I tried to interpret that in light of these categories. But if any of the colleagues were here would like to clarify or add any information at the end, you are more than welcome. So we will start. So just to give you an idea, we will address many clinics. There are clinics who not necessarily have had an experience with cooperation. So this is one thing we're going to see. But once considering those who have this experience, where are they located? What is the reach of the region that they are working in? What are the forms of cooperation? What is also the kind of cooperation activities, and what are the kind of legal clinics that have been targeted for the purpose of cooperation, and also some of the themes that appeared in the answers when it comes to specific cooperation projects. So the first category, I don't know if you can, there you go. I'm gonna read it because I think it's a bit blurry here. So the category 1 is how many clinics have expressed that they have some kind of relationship with other legal clinics. So in this question, we have from the 21 who responded, 6 saying that they have none, and 15 with some kind of relationship. And here it's not only through institutional cooperation as such, but any kind, I try to map any kind of relationship that exists in informal exchange through online meetings or cooperation projects that were very specific, but still resulted in some kind of cooperation. So the second category refers to what are the clinics, what are the clinics located, where are they are. So here it's also interesting to see, and this is perspectives from the 15 clinics that said that they have cooperation with other clinics, where are they located? And we can try to draw some lessons from that as well. So from Europe and Central Asia, you have the highest number. So 8 clinics saying that they have cooperation with others. We have one from Africa, 2 from the MENA region, and 4 from the Americas. So we can also see sometimes also how the availability of resources also play a role in fostering this cooperation or this cooperation schemes. So the next category refers to the relationship among clinics by region of reach. And here I mean in which environment or region they seek cooperation or they establish a cooperation with. So it really interesting that 44% of the answers, the clinics have some kind of relationship with clinics from other continents. So it's across regional, more at the global level. But we also have examples of specific regional that I will comment a bit later. But within a region and a regional block or a continent, you have the opportunity to have such cooperation. Also, clinics having cooperation with other clinics within the same country, but also from the same university even. So the next category refers to the relationship among clinics by forms of cooperation. So here we try to map what is the kind of cooperation that is embedded in these schemes. So you have a small number referring to individuals from clinics who had the opportunity to do an exchange program or a visiting program in other universities, but not within an institutional capacity, a whole scheme, but more one person, clinic director or staff member. We also have 27% that was a cooperation sometimes through online meetings, through exchanges, through very focused and ad hoc projects. And you have 27% as well into institutional cooperation and more established long-term cooperation in those areas. But we still have non-information for 40% of those. So this is also something that we can think ahead on how to map that. So the 5th category refers to the kind of legal clinics that are target of cooperation, because here it's important to highlight that many answers in the survey, though not necessarily they relate or they have a relationship with IHL clinics, but we have a great majority relationships with IHL clinics only, but also human rights clinics only, both IHL and human rights, and clinics also specialized in other areas. And the final category refers to what are some of the themes covered in these cooperation activities. And here, these are some of the themes that the themes that appeared in the answers provided by the survey. But of course, this list is not exhaustive, but it's a list provided on the information that we had. So we have a lot on IHL teaching, but also specific projects on children and armed conflicts, protection of cultural property in armed conflict, and other topics that not only covered by IHL, but for other domains of public international law, such as refugee protection, humanitarian assistance, and business and human rights. But also put other topics because if colleagues also have in mind, this is also an opportunity to share. Just quickly to highlight some good practices that we had. Here, I try to map in different categories based on this data. So we have cooperation at the global level cross-regional, and here some clinics who have been involved in international exchange program, Leiden, Maria Heichmann and Romatre, who of course had these exchange opportunities ready for some time. And the Global IHL Clinics Network, the colleagues in Leiden also manage. Those are cooperations that are more at the global level, but also cooperation with clinics from other legal domains. So a lot of the clinics that are not IHL per se are human rights. clinics, and we have examples in Quito, in New York as well, and in University of Amsterdam also working with the clinic from Colombia. So you can see that those clinics also benefit a lot from the IHL expertise that is brought through the IHL clinics. Inter-university cooperation was something that I didn't think at first, but I think in Quito, this is done with the human rights clinics within the university. So it's also an opportunity to see other clinics within the university that might not be of IHL, but they might have some interest in how to cooperate together. So this is a one option to explore. Um, Cooperation on selected and focused projects. Here we also had a really good example from Leuven and University of Tunis, where they were interviewing asylum seekers in Tunis and partnering with the clinic in Tunis in order to conduct such project, which is also a very focused project oriented, which also helps us to think that this might be a good opportunity to enhance cooperation. And one thing that I can also mention from my own clinic experience is that for over 2 years, we had a project with an NGO from Egypt where we cooperated with them in producing a research report on the protection of cultural property in armed conflict. Of course, we didn't have the direct contact with the universities there. However, the NGO had students from different universities in Cairo studying IHL. And through the NGO, we were able to engage with these students and then produce a joint report. It was a very focused project. Cooperation at the regional level, we have the IHL RED group, of course, as we were having speaking, was a good example of that. But also, Ahmed Khalifa also shared with us the Arab network of clinics that exist and how this is also can be seen through a regional perspective. And a point that I would like to also highlight is the cooperation among clinics from the Global South. So this is something that we have had opportunities recently, exchange with colleagues from the clinic at Addis University, but also with his experience with in Egypt. And this has also been something really valuable to us because these clinics, they work in a different way. As some colleagues mentioned, sometimes the work done in the clinic is something on the side, so it's not like a program as such. So it's a lot of voluntary work involved, and some of these clinics are located in places of conflict. So that changes totally the perspective. What is the perspective from students learning IHL in a conflict scenario versus students that are in a country with no armed conflict, such as Brazil, for example? So we have been trying, especially with Ethiopia, to establish some contact and try to foster that as well. Here, I just brought some examples, some images from some of these projects. This is the cover of the report that we produced together with these students from Egypt. And also brings just some other images from the IHL RED and the Global IHL Clinic Network. And just to end, I would just like to give you some entry points. At our experience, student legal competitions have been really important to foster cooperation. So we are responsible for the training of the students involved in IHL at our clinic in Brazil. And through the competitions, they were able to partner. So we were able to meet students from Ecuador, from Peru, from Argentina, from Colombia through the competitions, because we also have meetings with a group of students of interested in IHL from Romania, because we participate in a competition there. So it's, you see, like this is really it's something that has helped us in our path. I mentioned the regional cooperation, which might be really useful, especially when you have a language barrier. So we mostly work in Portuguese. Our students are not necessarily fluent in English or Spanish. Some are, but others not. So the regional cooperation can be an alternative, not to exclude colleagues from that as well. Focus on selected projects might also be a really interesting thing, because you don't need to think about an institutional approach, which I know that some clinics have, but a focus approach might also be a good opportunity. And peer-to-peer exchange with clinics from the Global South, as I mentioned. And I also put a point here in engaging with the Global IHL Clinics network, because at least for us, we have engaged with the network, and it has worked, and also to shed light on our work, and also to learn from other colleagues with the email groups. So I think it's a good thing that we might think to strengthen and also foster. Questions for you to think. What are the strategies to enhance and foster cooperation among IHL clinics based on this, but also in your personal experience? How can we enhance engagement with this, with and strengthen the Global IHL Clinics network? which I think it's a good entry point and we should really consider, at least from our experience. And how can cooperation among IHL clinics help advancing the work done by these clinics and tackling the challenges faced by them, especially if we think about like North and Global South different dynamics. So that's it. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot to Julio for permitting us to dig at the topic of cooperation and also giving new ideas. On that, it's everything time helpful to get new ideas on how to foster cooperation. Any input? Otherwise, I can make some comment. Or Robert, if you want.
So first of all, thanks a lot, Julio, for summarizing this. Just from my experience again, sorry that I'm drawing on my experience too much probably. I think having a network, and especially of IHL clinics, can be extremely important. I want to say we might have not been sitting, we would probably not be sitting here all together if not even after 2 or 3 years of having established the IHL clinic, I got to know other IHL clinic directors because we joked about this during the coffee break. It just helps sometimes when you start a clinic to have somebody else to talk about what are the challenges and to maybe ask for advice. And maybe it's a bit like a self-help group, yeah, so to be honest. But that's important because I probably would have given up on this whole endeavor like 5 years, 8 years ago, if not for other colleagues who had, and now even here constantly come up with new ideas. So I think for any new clinic, it might be really valuable to reach out to other clinics because it strengthens your position and you maybe can persuade your faculty easier that this is worthwhile to do. Apart from that, we are now trying to put out these tools which help make this easier. But also to maybe tackle projects which are bigger than just one clinic. Or we also mentioned that you have not enough infrastructure to deal with a project which was offered to you. And then there's another clinic somewhere else who's looking for a project. Yeah, so this was always our dream. And Johanna and I, we started this global IHL clinic network a while ago. Also with somehow having in mind, I would be great to have a database of possible cooperation partners. I mean, one example is the European Network of Clinical Legal Education, which is, I know, much more active than we are with regard to offering conferences, etc. But I think since we have now received like a critical mass of participants, it would be great if we can further extend this. And I honestly have to say, we now integrate the clinic network into the IHL RED Consortium, also because I had to realize that I don't have just the infrastructure to constantly serve the network as one actor alone. So that would be great if that becomes like a nice, maybe everyone can take care of that from year to year or things like this. That just pops up into my mind because, yeah.
Thank you, Robert, but thank you also, Julio, for your presentation. And your last sentence, Robert, ties directly in what I wanted to say, because we also talked about it, Julio and Julio when we walked to dinner yesterday, that I think that to foster the global network and to make it stronger, my theories are, and I wanted to see if you agree, is that we need maybe to develop a clear plan on what the idea and the reason for the network to be is, and like a home for the network maybe as well. And secondly, we're talking about Germany, we say we need always someone who has the head on. So not one person who makes the decision, but one person that makes sure that a decision is being made and organizes it. And I also had in mind like maybe a rotating a system. But I would be interested, especially from you as you and maybe also Hugo from clinic directors and clinic staff who are not yet involved in this IHL RED project, what would you want from the global network? What do you envision it to be? And what do you think are the most important things that it should develop to maybe facilitate more networking and cooperation?
Thank you, Timila, on that. Yes, and to complement also finally, then we give the floor to Julio. No, from my perspective, this was an idea we were already sharing with some of you. I think it would be helpful to keep a yearly appointment, a yearly meeting on IHL Legal Clinics only, just about to the challenge of IHL Legal Clinic education. I don't think it's good to merge it with other points like teaching in general terms with IHL research or IHL teaching in general. So as Legal Clinic has its own challenges, it's better to discuss it. And maybe one idea might be to have to identify at least one topic per year. It could be, I don't know, dissemination, and then we look at how dissemination projects are being carried out by Legal Clinic. So one year could be this one, other year could be the topic of the conversation about enforcement, and so more on the project about enforcement. So some legal clinics could present, and then of course there should be some general discussion permit everyone who are not involved in these specific projects to get a view on that, and also maybe to present new voices. So maybe the new IHL legal clinics which will be there might be provided with this slot to present themselves and to present what they are doing and to find so on. So these are just some ideas, and then also Julia, I give you the floor for comments on them.
Thank you very much for the question and the comments. So I think on the global IHL clinics network, I understand it's also it's important to have such a database, but there's only so much one can do. But I think the reason why I also decided to highlight that is because in our experience, it has been very useful. And I think sometimes, as you were mentioning, Robert, not only in terms of any specific achievable or something that you can provide concretely, but just for the fact that you know that there is a network that you can count on. And I think when we started the clinic in 2019 and we started doing our newsletter, for example, that we would have mapped our year of activities, we started sharing in the Google group, which was a good way to show and receive answers quite timely from colleagues in Leiden, but also from colleagues from Argentina and from other countries. So I think the network is really useful in this sense to keep the conversation going. And I think, as Timela was saying, I think it's a good thing to think about a way to strengthen the global IHL clinics network. I think a way like a rotation scheme could be something that other clinics can also participate and take ownership and jointly create something. But I also think that in terms of what we might need from a global IHL clinic, I would network. I would say that for many clinics, it's really hard to start, as you can imagine. And this network really can provide the tools. We have experiences from different countries and from different jurisdictions and from different universities. So I think we have already a lot of expertise on strategies that we can go about. So I think that the network could really facilitate these exchanges. It might be better for someone from South America speak to someone from Ecuador or from Brazil versus someone and from an African country that will have already the experience in Addis. So I think this kind of network could facilitate in this thing. But also throughout the process of an IHL clinic is also important to in the projects, because we have seen that there are some clinics with more structure, they have more funding, and they have more possibilities and knowledge on partners. It's really hard to find partners, especially if you are a single individual academic not having yet a network and very specific in your region. So the network could really help in fostering and sharing partners that Robert was also mentioning. And just to quickly reply to Giulio, I think that this, even with the end of the project as such, IHL RED, but I think it will be really important to keep a 1 year yearly conversation on that. I wonder to what extent we can consider the hybrid format, because I know that many colleagues will not be able to attend in person or fully online. This is something to explore. But I think if we, as you said, if we select some topics on IHL engagement or IHL dissemination, we have a lot of already activities that that was shared today that we can use as an example. So those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Julio, for this very interesting presentation on also give you some hope for new ways to foster cooperation. It is regard. Ugo, yes, sorry, I didn't saw you. Sorry for that.
I was working on the answer to the question that also put up to. Try from here. Here? Okay. It's a very interesting question, but at the same time, it gave us the opportunity to say what we think from the global south, as you said. I think that it will be useful to have more activities where students can be engaged, that they can realize that it is a world working on IHL, that we have different actors. So we have to think on activities that will be open to them to know other students. And now maybe the distance is one barrier, but also can be an opportunity now that we have these elements. So try to think on activities with the students. We have worked with what is called POIL, collaboration, an international class with the Tec de Monterrey, Universidad de Monterrey in Mexico. We have 1 week we work together. So the students from the legal clinic with the students from Mexico, they have a course from, we just focus on the protection of the most vulnerable in diversity. So we try to match this week with the global week that they have in Tec de Monterrey with our activities on the legal clinic where we work on the interview. So students are preparing for the interview, how to manage an interview, how to get information. So we prepare a case, and the students from Monterrey, from Tec Monterrey, they have to have to put on the feet of the person who is the victim of a violation of human rights and IHL war crimes, and they tell the story. And the students from San Francisco de Quito, they have to take note and they have to manage an interview. So we have this cooperation. It's almost like 3 years, and I think that's a good practice. Maybe we can explore something like that. Of course, one of the advantages there is the language. Mexican scholars speak Spanish, and we don't have that barrier. And it makes me your question makes me to think that, of course, language is one barrier for us, and we have to make this problem to become an opportunity. And I was thinking why we don't work together in order to manage this barrier. For example, I was thinking that we can work together on some documents. I have one experience. Sorry to take too long, but we have a case last year on the Inter-American Court of Human Rights. We had a collaboration with Andrea Vargas, so from Glasgow University. It was very nice to have this collaboration because we were working on some issues about refugee law in the UK. And we need some help because we have this case at the Inter-American Court of Human Rights. So we have a couple of meetings. We were thinking to have an amicus curiae. It was not, we couldn't get all the process, but we have a good guidance there on that case. So that was a good opportunity. But also we have a good experience with Loyola University with Professor Cesare Romano. I don't know if you know him. He leads the Human Rights Clinic at University of Loyola. So we have this case at the Inter-American Court of Human Rights, the case Rogelio Viteri Ungaretti against Ecuador, was a member of the armed forces who denounced some acts of corruption, and then he was even threatened. He needs to leave the country, and then he was a refugee in the UK. And we had a collaboration with Loyola University, and they sent an amicus curiae for the case. But then the Inter-American Court of Human Rights said, oh, they sent an amicus curiae in English. They work all the semester for that. Say, no, you need the amicus curiae be in Spanish for the Inter-American. And then group of students, Spanish speaker could help. So even the language could be a problem. We can overcome, we can change that problem and become an opportunity to work together on this stuff. So those ideas come to my mind. Thank you for the question.
Thank you a lot, Julio. See, Julio, Ugo, for the further thoughts on that. So we can conclude this morning session on that. We are on time. We resume at 2 p.m. and it's also for friends at home. And we heard about the perspective of partners of IHL Legal Clinic with a series of colleagues going to present their views on how to cooperate with IHL Legal Clinics. And then don't forget how in the afternoon we have this session presenting the IHL RED resources on clinical legal education and IHL. So thank you. See you at 2 p.m.